Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Mesh, news editor at Willamette Week, and this is our Distant Voices series. Talking today with John Horvick, one of Oregon's preeminent pollsters. John, what have you been up to when you can't leave the house?
When I can't leave the house, uh, I like my job. So, I spend a lot of my time thinking about the things I normally do. Honestly, I've been able to dig into a lot of books that I kind of were in the stacks for a long time.
What are you reading?
What's that?
What are you reading?
I've been going through a lot of, on the fiction side, I've been going through a lot of, a couple different things. The lighter stuff, well, although it's not as light as I thought it was, I've been reading a lot of Mark Twain.
Mm.
Darker than I recall as a middle school or high school student when I read Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. So I reread those. Some plague sort of novels, like I just read The Year Wonders by Gwendolyn Brooks, which is a great book. Highly recommend, but sort of challenging. And Daniel Defoe's Year of the Plague Year from 1880, or he wrote it 17 something, but the plague in London in the 1680s. A lot of political science stuff. So reading a lot about elections, turnout, partisanship, sort of those big questions that animate politics in 2020.
That's a good segue into our topic for today. How did the pandemic change Oregon's voting patterns, if at all?
Well, it wasn't too affected, or it was affected, but it was kind of pushed and pulled with in different ways. It sort of ended up being about what we would expect otherwise. And the averageness is unexpected, at least to me. I had predicted lower turnout.
Were we just bored?
Maybe that's possible. We did have, that competitive race in District 2, so, drove out probably some Republicans that maybe wouldn't have voted otherwise. We had an interesting mayor's and city council race in the biggest city in Portland. So maybe those are some factors that drove it up. The other thing is there was prepaid postage, perhaps that little sort of nudge got more people just to drop it off than they would have otherwise. Or for whatever the reason, turnout looked better than I had anticipated. I mean, it's not fantastic, but it's not bad.
What else surprised you?
Well, you have the candidate races, which we will certainly talk about. I think the big thing that surprised me was how the local funding measures did. So in the Portland metro area, at least the last time I looked, all 7 were passing, including, of course, the big one, the Metro Homelessness Services measure. But if we look across the state, at least by my count, there are 48 local funding measures on the ballot and 36 passed or were passing as of Tuesday. With the pandemic and economic catastrophe, unemployment shooting up, it was no guarantee that voters were going to say yes to tax measures. So that is definitely a big one for me. For him to hold the sitting commissioner below 50% and to defeat a former mayor, and without a real, name brand, is really quite a remarkable political feat. I think among the candidates, that's the big one. If we go
maps was not taken very seriously, I think, by a lot of Portland press, my newspaper included. Why did we screw that up? What did we not see?
I think that the shiny objects, and I mean that not disparagingly. So, you had a former mayor and a sitting commissioner who aren't just elected officials, but they are kind of big personalities. And I think, as it turned out, they both had ceilings, and so he just was able to sort of float in there. What surprises me a little bit is that Keith Wilson did so poorly. He did get the endorsement of the Tribune. I thought that he and Mingus Matz may have split that other third of the vote more than they did. But the fact that Mingus was able to coalesce basically all of it is what's going to get him into the top 2. I think the fact that he was not Sam Adams, right? So that's sort of, he kind of filled that lane. and he had that personal experience working for Chloe Daly, kind of made him the foil for her in a way that nobody else could be. And I got to think that he, as of May 21st, that he is the favorite headed into November, despite the fact that maybe he didn't get the attention that he deserved headed up to the primary. Yeah.
Cycle after cycle, I remember this going back to Chris Dudley's race against John Kitzhaber. There's the Multnomah County Wednesday morning to Wednesday afternoon surprise, where it looks like somebody a little more conservative is going to win a race, and then, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Almost the joke is, and I'm not sure in the minds of some Republicans it's a joke, that there's a stack of ballots in the trunk of somebody from SIU's car.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, we saw that in a big way with the Mark Hass-Shemia Fagan race this year.
Yeah.
And yet it seemed to catch the Oregonian by surprise.
Yeah. I can't speak for why they called that race. I will just speak for my own, and, I play a talking head on TV. I think calling races just generally is dumb. What's the point? I don't know why we just can't tell voters what the count is and let them make or news viewers make a judgment for themselves. So, like, that's my own bias I bring to it, especially this year, considering that the counties told us that they're going to take a long time to count votes. They had fewer staff, they were social distancing. So I don't understand what the rush was. They came out and acknowledged it, and I saw Teresa Bottomley had a post today on Twitter sort of apologizing for making that call. But I don't know why it was made in the first place, why we play that game. But we do. It counted slowly and has more votes to count. And it did pull Shemia Fagan over the top. The strategy that well, if it was a strategy, the sort of opportunity for Hass was to have the Jamie McLeod Skinner and Shemia Fagan split the progressive in the Democratic Party. He really needed Jamie McLeod Skinner just do a little bit better than she did.
Senator Thatcher as well. It's not like
sure.
Not like this. Is this going to be a negative campaign? I'm kind of excited about it. I feel like Thatcher's going to get real nasty real quick.
Well, it could be. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know Kim Thatcher as well as I do. It's just so I don't really know what sort of campaign should be. I think that the talk about her is that she's running for this race somewhat reluctantly. I don't know if that's true or not, but that she was the one that was willing to step in when not other people did. What I hope, I'm going to wear my hat as a voter. And not as a pollster. I hope this doesn't become an issue of everything but what the Secretary of State's office is supposed to do. I mean, that's probably very naive to want to hope for that. But I don't need, as a voter, a repeat of, say, Brad Avakian's run 4 years ago when it was about everything till Sunday and very little about what the Secretary of State actually does. So,
but that was not his choice. That was his fault. He decided he wanted to make his campaign about every social justice issue he'd ever read about.
Yep, he did. I mean, that was his. It was his campaign. That was his. It got him as far as it got him. But Secretary, they run elections, and they're supposed to be basically our state auditor. So I'm hoping that they can convince the voters to be good at those things. But that's just me.
They're a really interesting set of data around stay-home orders and the governor's executive orders that show what I was actually a little bit surprised by, that they are not only popular, but popular across party lines, and that although the level of trust in the governor herself is pretty divided between on a partisan level, the level of trust in science and doctors pretty standard across the board.
Yep.
Is that something that you're seeing hold steady? Is that a one-time poll? You're looking at it every few weeks?
Yeah, we're asking it pretty frequently. So we have I think we're doing our fourth right now, just came out of the field. So hopefully we'll be able to share some results in the next week or so. So her numbers were better a month ago than they had been in basically her tenure. Now, it was specific to coronavirus and her management of that. But I think if we would have asked more generally, her numbers would have been good. We saw right direction numbers for the state actually go up from March to April. So more people in April were saying that the state's headed in the right direction than they thought so in March, even though, well, the world was falling apart. And we've seen this national